Well, greetings again, my friends. This is a very quick review on what goes into a thesis proposal. Now, a thesis proposal is one of the last things you do in this course RE 600 in advanced research. And I want to help you prepare for the items that will be a part of that proposal. There are 6 elements in the proposal. The proposed theme, thesis statement, and research question that has to do with the what of your research. The reason this research could be important in ministry, that's the why of your research. The setting and scope of the actual research, that's where will the research take place, how will it take place. The research plan and timeline, when will you do this research? And finally, a bibliography with essential research resources. Now, that's a part of the proposal. Along with that, you also must submit an institutional research board application, which I will explain at the end of this presentation. The proposed theme and statements explain the what of your research. This all centers on the research question related to a focused topic. In our discussion and our work together in this course, you're going to zero in on a specific topic to look at, to research, to see what other people have written in their interest on that topic. This question is reflected in the theme of the thesis and the thesis statement. All three of these, the theme, the statement, the question, must agree, and they will be repeated throughout the thesis exactly the way you state them here in this first chapter. All of this is a part of chapter 1 of your thesis. Now, let me give you an example out of a dissertation I worked on. My title was Defining the Role of Executive Ministers in Large Churches. My theme was this statement: executive ministers in large churches lack clearly defined lines of authority and responsibility. That led to this question. This was my research question. What are the essential lines of authority for the role of executive ministers in large churches, and determine whether or not the position has the necessary authority to lead or manage? Now, the next thing you're going to talk about is the importance of your research. Why is this study so important? What difference will it make in ministry or in the church? Is there a biblical or theological issue at stake? Is there a ministry issue that should be addressed? This reasoning should be included in chapter 1. It won't be extensive. You will do more of that in chapter 2, but you need to talk about the importance. This is the reason why I believe this research is important. Here are the 3 reasons for my research. First of all, there was a lack of research into large churches. Now, large churches are defined as 500 to 1,000 in average attendance. So overall, there's a lack of research into these churches. Second, there's general confusion about what executive ministers do in large churches. I've been there, I've been asked that question. And then last of all, this confusion is leading to unnecessary leadership problems in large churches. So I was researching this issue to see if I could find solutions for those problems. The setting and the scope of your research is the context in which the research takes place. Where are you doing this research? I'll illustrate that I did my research in large churches. The scope is the size or the extent of the research. This is the how. How much research are you doing? How little research are you doing? What will determine the samples of the research that you're doing? You may be doing literature review only. Well, then your research is limited to the books and the articles, that kind of research. These statements and these descriptions should help define the limitations of research. You are not able to do a worldwide research. You're going to do a specific area in a specific setting. And you may have a statement in chapter 1 that says, these are the limitations of my research. Here's an example. In my case, the setting was large churches, only those that were 500 to 1,000 in attendance, and only those that had executive ministers. If it was a large church, didn't have an executive minister, then I was not interested in doing that research. The research plan and timeline explains the methodology of your research. Are you doing interviews? Are you doing a literature review? Are you doing case studies? Are you doing research into the history of an organization or of a church? That's your methodology, and you should be very clear about the methodology, something you're going to explain in detail in Chapter 3. The plan should include details about whether there's the direct involvement of human subjects. That becomes a very, very important issue. If you are actually involving people who need to be protected in any way, then that takes your research to a different level that I will mention later. The timeline is for the research steps only and explains the length of both the actual research and the analysis. It will take me 1 month to do this, 2 months to do that. Maybe it's 2 months and 2 months. You need to provide a timeline for how long your research is going to go. And as I've mentioned, this information relates to Chapter 3. Now, here's an example out of my research. My plan was to develop case studies in 10 large churches, and I was able to do that. Each case study involved separate interviews with the lead or senior pastor and the executive pastor. So I talked to 2 people in each church. These were blind interviews in that they did not involve the names of the people or the locations of the churches. Nowhere in my dissertation did I mention any names or locations. I mentioned culture. Maybe these were rural churches versus suburban churches. I mentioned those kind of things, but I never listed names or locations for any of my research. Then the interviews took place over 2 months, followed by 2 months of analysis. Now, the thing that I've mentioned earlier is the IRB application. Based on guidelines for human subject research, TCM maintains an institutional review board that monitors all research done by students or faculty. This is done in order to protect the subjects that are involved. And some human subjects are more protected than others. For example, prisoner populations are very protected in the research field. Children are very protected in the research field. Any group of people that cannot speak for themselves is a very highly protected group of people. And so any research is measured by whether there is actual human subject research involved in the study, and if so, at what level. A research application then must be completed at the same time the research proposal, so the IRB can review each student's research plan. So that's the reason why at the end of this course you're submitting both the research proposal and an IRB application. Now there are 3 kinds of IRB applications. There's an exempt application, which is used when there is no human subject involvement or nothing that requires monitoring. For example, there may be human subjects involved, but they're not directly involved in some way, or the information you're going to obtain about them is readily available publicly. Then you are in an exempt kind of research. The expedited application is used when there is human subject involvement, but it doesn't require monitoring. My research was an expedited application because I wasn't interviewing highly protected groups of people. I was working with people and protecting their identity in every way. A full application is used when there are human subjects involved and special groups of human subjects that require monitoring. So you're going to in Moodle right now, the exempt application is there. The expedited application will be added very soon. We probably are not going to make the full application available right away unless someone's research would require that. Now, both of these documents, the thesis proposal and the IRB application, are located in Moodle in the latter part of the course. Both are forms that can be filled out electronically. They're Word documents, but if you call them up, you'll see that there are boxes in the form where you can type in the information that you're providing. The submission of these documents is the final assignment of the course that we're in, of RE 600. And it is a requirement to finish the course that you submit both of those documents. And we'll be working with you along the way. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing your work.